Welcome back to Pause, Rewind, Play. I'm your host, Ben, and today we're going to be talking about AI in media and entertainment. This is the second part of a discussion we're having. I'm very lucky still to have my guest, Tom, with me. How you doing?
Very good. Still here.
Still here?
Yeah. Haven't left after the first one.
Still tension, still talking.
Yeah.
We are. Well, I think we're lucky in that there was a lot we couldn't get to in the first part of the discussion, but we're going to try and cover now. We're going to focus in a little bit more on futures in this conversation. Also, talk a little bit about the idea of one-person production houses, the use of AI in all the various elements of the production chain. So let's because I think we've got maybe 20, 25 minutes. Let's dive straight in. And actually, let's go to this concept of AI or the use of AI in acting and film production. I think, just to kind of tee things up, there's been historically, in recent years, the use of techniques like CGI to drive and enhance various elements of film. I think actually these days, there's a great term I've heard in VFX called casual VFX, which is the use of CGI and other techniques, other VFX techniques in just in the background, right, to fill in things that you may not have seen before. And that tool set and that's part of the industry, very, very mature now. Most of the films you'll see in the last 10, 20 years will have some elements in there, some overt, like for example in sci-fi, some more casual, just used to fill in kind of buildings and what have you. Yeah. Now, why does that matter? Why is that interesting? Well, what we're seeing with some of these GenAI tools currently is a different way to achieve those end results in a potentially quite a rapid fashion. Yeah. And so we talked in the last episode a bit about slow-mo video, my goodness me. But what's interesting there is the fidelity of some of those videos that's being generated is really, really high and only increasingly so. Yeah. So we've gone from almost like a fuzzier, low-res, low frame rate video to something now that's already, I think, HD and beyond. It's beginning to become high frame rate. It looks visually really impressive, and it's being achieved in very, very short periods of time. Yeah. Just on those input to video output tools, what's the cutting edge of what you've seen recently? What have you been impressed by? Because I think that talks a little bit towards the ease of access and potentially generation of some of this. Yeah.
Well, definitely. That in film is such a big area. I think where we're going to see AI coming in. The shots in, media content films that would have taken a team like to go to a beach and shoot a panning overhead shot across around the beach to get to a scene where there are actors who are about to shoot something, that you would have to do on a helicopter, but you could now just do through AI. We're going to see that combination work really, really well. And the challenge will be tying that up in terms of consistency into the film. And that's the real eye, and that's the tricky part today, right? Yeah. So that's why not anybody can do it, because you really have to have an eye for detail, and you have to be able to not just use the tools properly, but then go into post-production with them and make them work. So,
and I think there's a big bit in there that I was going to comment on, which was controllability and what I might also call steerability of the tool. So with a lot of these tools, you can generate something, but you can't necessarily generate. You can't give it. You're starting to be able to give it guidance now, control and steer. Yes. But you couldn't only recently.
Yes. Yeah. And even granular stuff. You're giving an input to these tools. They're models that are then interpreting that and building something off the back of it. And interestingly, the image tools that have been out there for a while, and of those, Midjourney has been very good, and Ideogram has caught up quite quickly, and there are a number of others that are out there. They've built in editing functionality into the tool itself now. So you can create an image and you can highlight an area and you can get it to replace it.
That's to that steerability.
That steerability, yeah. So we're starting to have that for sure. But those are great image tools. Flux as well came out recently, which is a very good image model. And then into the video stuff, Runway has really come on in the latest version, Gen 3. We're still waiting for Sora over here, which is the OpenAI text-to-video model, which is just starting to be released.
Yeah, but you can see how these might go into professional workflows at some point, and that not to replace VFX, but probably to give you another way to augment or achieve similar things. And actually, I think when you think about those things, you may think, well, that's the background of what's going on. If we pull into the foreground and we think about, this concept of actors, or what ultimately would you replace extras? I think that's already being achieved with CGI, but would you do it with would a technique you'd use within that be with GenAI? And then ultimately, does it impact actors and acting in general?
Yeah,
because if you think about what some of these tools can achieve already, can you generate audio output based on some specific training input, i.e. someone's voice? It's entirely doable to a reasonable level of quality and fidelity. Maybe not, maybe not film and TV level, perhaps yet, but certainly a decent level.
Yeah.
And then if you've done the audio part and you're able to do the video part, like,
totally,
where do we land?
Look, we're already in that with like the Michael Parkinson interviews, right? Which where his AI version of himself is starting to do future interviews. And so we're starting to lean into this aspect of, well, how do these tools work alongside either current actors or past actors or people in the media?
Yeah.
And that is being worked out right now, right? That is exactly the ground that we're in. And so will it affect actors? 100%. It's going to affect that industry, and what will it do? Is going to be is tricky to predict, because on the one hand, yes, we've got the ability to create footage that is really much quicker and easier, and if we can get it aligned to exactly the type and style that we need, then it's going to be really, really impactful. But on the other hand, even today, when you think of the visual effects, right, not every film uses loads of visual effects, and we don't rank a film as the best film ever just because of that, right?
Some people do, but yeah,
I
think most of us don't, but yeah,
but in general across that whole industry. So I think, of course, it's going to have significant impact, but there's a knock-on effect as well, which is, well, hold on a minute, are there new ways that actors can license their likeness and their ability and their voice and their character
100%.
in other ways? And this is something I know we were talking about earlier as well, which we're probably going to get into in a bit, which is not just for actors, but could be for anybody.
Yeah. So, we're definitely heading there. I mean, there is a term that's used, I think, in the VFX domain when it comes to replicating people and using whichever technique you're using, which is this term uncanny valley, and it is the fact that your mind is tuned and is very good at recognizing when something isn't real, particularly with like faces are really, really hard to do. Lips are very, very hard to do in terms of VFX. I talk about that like I'm saying, talking from any position of experience. Far from it. I just, from what I understand, from what I've watched, and from also, when you experience content, I think at the moment you can look at it. Maybe for the images, it's much harder to tell, but when you've got a moving image, i.e. a video, something in your brain says, nope. Or conversely, yep, my brain accepts that. Yeah. And I think as my point here is that as we cross that threshold and we jump the chasm to where we've cleared that, then actually it opens up a place where, yes, you can license or an actor could license their likeness and how they sound, and that is everything.
Yeah.
And they then are used, or can be positioned in any sort of content.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an astonishing place to imagine, but I don't think it is necessarily that far away.
No, well, so I don't think it is. And you're right. That today, where are we? If you look at the videos created, I was sort of smiling while you were saying that, because I was watching a video this week of the Pope, which had been deep faked, talking about how he was really behind AI because we could create another god using AI. And when that
doesn't seem controversial at all. Oh my goodness.
And I saw it on social media in a small window, and it obviously caught my eye. And I'm looking for these things straight off the bat, right?
And you'd like to say you'd be quite well positioned to spot them?
Hopefully quite well positioned to spot them. But what I did think was, well, if I don't know what to look for, or if I'm slightly older, or if my vision is impaired slightly, I can't pick that up on a small tile in a website, right? Yeah. And it's his voice. It's done well enough that if you don't interrogate it, you could be fooled. And so we are in this really exciting area and quite scary area in terms of, people's image rights, deep fakes, and, manipulation or whatever else goes along with it.
In a slightly more positive way.
Yeah. You told me not to be negative. Sorry. Okay. Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I think where there's been a really positive and interesting expression is hasn't been achieved with AI exclusively, but there has been approximately the same approach to things, which is within gaming, where inevitably, rather than just watching video cutscenes, now we're seeing kind of in-game cutscenes and acting from various characters. And there are likenesses, there are licensed likenesses of characters too. They've gone in and recorded their voices, they've gone in and had the face modelled, and they do appear in video games. And I think that's one sector of entertainment that has embraced the idea that bringing actors in is, does great things for a game, can do great things for a game, not always, but often.
Yeah.
And so feels like AI and GenAI specifically might offer tool sets to be able to replicate that approach, but in TV and entertainment that actors can't be in for whatever reason.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, and that area is so interesting as well, right? So I've got a 7-year-old son. He started playing some computer games, and they're like in my head. So like Spider-Man 2 on the PS5, right? In my head, when he plays that's like what I thought computer games would be like when I was 8 years old and I got a Sega Mega Drive for the first time and didn't realize that all the game ads weren't in-game footage. They were just ads they built. And then I got the game and I was like, there's nothing like what I was sold.
It's still great, but yeah.
But now they're like that.
Yeah.
And so, but what I find fascinating was when I'm watching him play is this intersection between gaming, storyline, and actors, right? Yeah. And with these crossroads forming. And when you think of what AI can do, which is we're moving as well where we can create content on the fly, or we can have an input and create content. Where does that take us? Like there is an intersection and overlap here where games and film and us creating stuff merge into one, right? And we're watching a film or a storyline or a narrative, and we're playing and we're creating the next level for it.
Oh, that could be awesome.
And so couldn't that be awesome, right? Yeah. So I think the crossover of these things is fascinating, and we're just beginning to see that with what's happening with particularly Gen AI in those areas.
Hello. I hope you're enjoying the conversation in today's episode. I just wanted to take a moment to say a huge thank you to Spicy Mango, who are our Series 1 sponsor. If you're looking to build global scale media and digital publishing platforms, Spicy Mango bring that serious expertise. They dig deep, they look at your business goals, and they ensure technology actually does what it should do in order to drive growth and remain cost effective. You can get in touch with them at spicymango.co.uk. And with that, let's get back to the episode. We're going to come to the idea of one-way consumption versus a more interactive consumption, whether that becomes circular rather than linear. We're going to get there by virtue of talking a little bit about what I think in some ways are what could be the rise of one-person production houses, right? So you heavily utilizing GenAI tools. I think it's fair to say now that there are studios that exist, particularly in the digital creator domain, that are much smaller than a traditional studio, no doubt. And what I'm wondering is whether that scales down even further. So you maybe have a single person studio that's creating really high quality video output. It's got great music, great audio as well, and the vast proportion of it is prompted. It's AI generated.
Yeah.
I think it feels like if we get that controllability and steerability bit that we were talking about earlier, like I want to make this thing and it needs to be specifically this thing, so go make that for me.
Yeah, we're getting there. Yeah. I mean, look, we've had the narrative of like, and probably I think this came from Sam Altman originally, right, the CEO of OpenAI, that we will see a $1 billion person, a $1 billion company that's run by one person.
Right.
Now, how long do we get there? It's a great headline. How long do we get there? Don't know. But there's a truth in that totally, which is we will see smaller teams produce way more.
Yep.
And we're already seeing that in certain areas. And when those teams start to hone and specialize and are able to really upskill their knowledge and chain the right tools together in the right area, then totally. We are going to see production houses, I think initially that specialize in a certain type of output or production start to get traction. And then as time goes on, that widens out, right? That widens out into potentially studios and whatever else that is in that could produce anything. But
because I think also creators, and often when I think creators are referred to, maybe it's like that's a single person. It's not always true these days. Those are grown up into
teams,
teams. But they could be, to your point, very small teams producing very high quality output.
Yeah, exactly. So it's picking the right tools in the right way. And we know from tool use today is like trying to get them to do everything. You get frustrated, right? Fairly quickly. So those narrower use cases are the ways to get the most out of them today, or to get the biggest bang for your buck in terms of what they're able to do.
I saw a fascinating thing the other day, which was a set of AR glasses that was being used with a pointer. And they were recording in the video around them, but they were also using a particular app. They were drawing on lines where they wanted things to be, and then based on that input plus some prompting, they were able to transform their environment around them in video so you'd have essentially like an actor that would get replicated and the background, and with some very quick kind of I was going to say very basic level painting around the lines around the environment, generate what was essentially a new environment. I don't know if it was quite on in real time, but my point in raising it was just the tools. They are like consumer level tools. It's an app, it's a set of AR glasses, and it's a GenAI tool. And the output was good. I mean, it was really quite impressive indeed. I think they had some burning cars in the environment, and they changed an office block to some sort of more futuristic looking building. But the transform was impressive.
It's crazy,
given how simple the inputs were.
Yeah, and you think, where are we headed? We're headed to a place where that could be done in real time on the fly. So what does that do for things like, being able to rehearse in environments, or being able to produce different shots and look at what works better, or for you at home watching something and being able to create the next scene or create a storyline that is then taken forward.
That sounds so cool.
Yeah, doesn't it?
Really cool. Yeah.
So, I think there's... Do
you think we'll see it in games first in some way? Do you think they'll find a way to, maybe like you're playing a game, you've got a mobile device with you, shoot some element of it and say, right, send, and then the game sends up the cloud, the game just renders it back down again and sends it to you?
I think games is probably the place where it will happen first, given the sort of setups they have and the interactivity that's already in games, right? They've got that two-way.
But you've just got this incredibly powerful computer with a bunch of sensors, i.e. your mobile phone sat next to you whilst you're playing.
Yes, yeah.
And the ability to capture, and the amount of different sorts of data that GenAI could use, whether it's location or whether it's orientation, accelerometer based, video, audio. There's so much there in that, and at a high quality. Just go capture, send, and whether it's like you said when we talked before, another character, another level, whatever it might be. I think. Yeah, well, and
that's almost the future as well. Leads into like the future of the living room and what that looks like, and and I think again in the not too distant future, it's probably not even going to be your phone.
Yeah,
it's probably going to be driven by voice and being able to automatically ingest data from your different devices and combine that with your own instructions and what you want to happen.
And just one sort of mildly more technical question. So that point you made about real time versus non-real time, my sense is we can do good stuff offline with a bit of time for the cloud service to process things typically, but I haven't seen too much in terms of real time yet. How far do you think away, given what you observed, that we are from being able to do something that is closer to or could even be considered real time?
We're probably a little way away, I would say, from that, given what is needed in terms of compute to to do that. But the compute power for AI is growing at a rapid rate. We've got the latest AI models are being trained on compute power that is probably nearly 10x what it's been before. And so if that continues going up, which given where we are and the rewards for it will probably trend up.
Yep.
If in a couple of years we're another 10x, we're 100x on what we've trained models on today, then we might not be too far away from it. But I don't know in terms of when. Yeah. I'd make a prediction, but it'd be wrong.
And to pick up one other point that you made as well before about the nature of content that we consume that you may not know is synthetic, do you think that, because there has been some talk about how to account for that, maybe whether it's some sort of watermarking or some approach to it. Do you think that has legs? Do you think it's viable? I think there's a general feeling that it's needed and it's a necessary, perhaps an important thing to do. Do you think it's achievable? Or do you think we're always kind of playing in a weird sort of whack-a-mole catch-up kind of?
Well, we will always be playing cat and mouse because people will use it in different ways, and we will always have like the first thing any new technology has is scams when it's successful, right?
Yeah,
that's just what happens. So it will always be a game of cat and mouse. I think there's an interesting differentiation to make in terms of content, and watermarking, in the stuff for fun, for amusement, for entertainment. Like, I don't know if we need to go into it all that much, right? It's like comedy. If we were to go and like rate comedy on, which we've sort of tried to do recently, right?
I do in my head all the time.
But on some sort of weird metric that not everybody has, it doesn't work, does it?
Yeah.
So, but I think out of that, we do need watermark. I would imagine it will be embedded into files, and today you can run analysis on files and get a very good accuracy on have they been created with AI. Of course, you can get around that if you take it out of the model and then you do some of your own editing in it.
Yeah.
But I think we'll have markers on there that allow us to identify it, and they'll be overlaid onto platforms or different systems based on the type of content, giving us an indication that we think this is authentic and as in truthful, authentically created, or this is AI or might be a fake or might not be a real representation. And definitely we'll have that. But underneath that, there's going to be a game of cat and mouse, because the thing we've learned over the past couple of years across all these different channels and media outlets is that if you're not careful, you can use content to manipulate people to back a certain narrative or a certain belief, and that that will continue, won't it?
And it's important for certain. I get from that important for certain categories of content.
Yeah,
things like news. It's important to have that clarity on is it original, is it synthetic or otherwise.
If I post a slow panning shot of me,
don't do that
on a beach,
or do.
And just send it to you. You don't care if it's like, but if it's a news article. Do you want me to stop sending them, or do you still
no? Continue as you were. Okay. So,
it's a reference to the last episode, by the way.
It is, but it's maybe too much info. Yeah, totally. Just fry my brain just thinking about slow-mo beach shot. Anyway, moving on. So, I think we're gonna wrap up shortly, but there's no question in what we've discussed, and it should be clear that there is transformative potential within AI, and what is also true is that we are taking big steps forward, and it seems like we're taking them rapidly as well. And I think, for my sense, is that for media entertainment, we're going to feel that impact throughout the value and distribution chain. And I feel like big tech is probably going to be somewhere centrally in the middle of making that happen as well. If what would be, just to close, your kind of final thoughts on what the next decade could hold for us? I mean, we talked before about this idea of, and we've already got them actually, AI influencers and kind of virtual celebrities. Is that one way it could go? Another aspect to maybe think about is this circular rather than linear consumption. If you had to kind of pull in one thought that you hear a lot and that you think would be worth reflecting for folks that are watching, what would you say?
Well, I mean, I think there's a lot of different interesting areas that happen, but one that we were talking about earlier, which is very intriguing, is that if we have more tools to create stuff. And we've said this in the last episode. Of course, it's going to have two effects, right? Lots and lots of average stuff being created, and a whole load of new interesting stuff being created as well. But let's say we have those tools to create things, and I create a new character in a short series that I use with AI, that I put out there, and you see that and you want to build on it. Well, maybe you could license that character from me, and you could use it on your AI model to build something else. And if you get traction, I get a royalty on the back of what you've created, because you've used what I've come up with to come up with something else. And that is really interesting, because what we have there is we have this sort of building on top of each other effect. And we have the ability potentially for anybody to become almost like a content creator media house in a new form of content production. And so plus it also starts to feed into what we spoke about in the last episode, which was training data and the potential challenges of training data. But if I'm able to curate what I put into the model that I'm building with or creating outputs with, and I hone that, then that becomes interesting. So I really think that is a super interesting area in terms of media entertainment, the
kind of democratization of it, who originates it, creating a kind of a new value chain, almost in some respects. I mean, look, I mean, Tom, the first part of the discussion was good. This was even better. Thank you so much for your time. Thanks to everyone that's been watching. Again, if you've enjoyed what you've watched, please drop a like or subscribe. And again, when we're talking about media entertainment and TV technology in particular, sometimes it is good to pause, rewind and play.